1 year had passed since the Galactic Council had given humanity their unwanted ship. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, but the ship around him looked nothing like the rusty transport they had received 12 months ago. Every surface gleamed with human improvements, every system hummed with enhanced efficiency, and every crew member wore the confident expression of people who had accomplished the impossible. The view screen showed a sight that would have been unthinkable a year ago. 5 more ships floated in formation around the Defiance, each one a former piece of galactic junk that had been transformed by human engineering. The fleet looked mismatched from the outside, with ships from different alien civilizations that had never been designed to work together. But Jake knew that beneath their varied exteriors, they all shared the same human philosophy of constant improvement. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vorthan ship," Amy Carter announced, from her communications station. "Captain Zara says her crew has finished installing the new power distribution system." Jake smiled. Captain Zara was a member of the Vorthan species, a group that had been dismissed by the Galactic Council as too primitive to matter. 3 months ago, she had approached Earth asking for help with an ancient cargo vessel her people had found, drifting in space. Now that ship was faster and more capable than most modern galactic cruisers. "Tell Captain Zara that we'll begin joint maneuvers in 1 hour," Jake replied. "And Amy, any word from the Kresh delegation?" "They should arrive within the day, sir. Their message said they're bringing 2 more ships that need human modifications." Dr. Walsh looked up from his science station with excitement. "Jake, you need to see the latest efficiency reports from our partner vessels. The improvements keep getting better as we learn more about combining different alien technologies." Jake walked over to Kevin's station and studied the data on the screen. The numbers were remarkable. Ships that had been considered worthless by their original builders were now outperforming vessels that cost 100 times more to construct. More importantly, every improvement made to one ship could be adapted and applied to others. "How many species are now working with us?" Jake asked. 17 confirmed partnerships, Kevin replied, and at least 30 more that have sent unofficial requests for technical assistance. The Galactic Council is calling it the human contamination. Jake laughed at that. The Council had tried to make contamination sound like a bad thing, but species across the galaxy were lining up to be contaminated with human engineering principles. Worlds that had been ignored or dismissed by galactic civilization were suddenly discovering that their old ships, their outdated equipment, and their primitive facilities could be transformed into something remarkable. "Lisa, how are the training programs going?" Jake asked over the intercom. Chief Engineer Lisa Brady's voice came back full of enthusiasm. "Better than we ever imagined, Captain. We now have human engineering teams working with 43 different species. Every partnership teaches us something new about what's possible. The success had been overwhelming. What started as humanity's attempt to fix one broken ship had become a galaxy-wide movement of technological renaissance. Species that had accepted their limitations for centuries were suddenly discovering that those limitations existed only in their minds. "Captain," Amy said urgently, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. Counselor Vex is requesting immediate communication." Jake settled into his command chair. "Put him through, Amy. Let's see what the Council has to say now." The main screen flickered to life, showing Counselor Vex in what appeared to be a much less formal setting than their previous conversations. The insectoid alien looked tired, and his usual air of superiority was completely gone. "Captain Morrison," Vex began, "the Galactic Council requests a formal meeting to discuss the current situation." "What situation would that be, Counselor?" Jake asked, though he had a good idea what was troubling the Council. "The widespread adoption of human modification techniques has caused significant disruption to established galactic trade patterns," Vex explained. "Species that were previously dependent on Council-approved technology are now achieving independence through human assistance." "And that's a problem?" Dr. Walsh asked. "The galactic economy has been stable for over 2,000 years, Vex replied, stiffly. Advanced civilizations provide technology and protection to primitive ones in exchange for resources and loyalty. Your methods are undermining this system. Jake understood now. The Galactic Council wasn't upset because humans had made a broken ship work. They were upset because humans had shown other species that they didn't need the Council's permission to improve their lives. Counselor, are you asking us to stop helping other species? The Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership in galactic civilization, Vex said quickly. Access to the most advanced technologies, trade partnerships with major species, and representation in Council decisions. All we ask is that you cease sharing your modification techniques with unauthorized civilizations. The bridge of the Defiance fell silent as Jake considered this offer. Everything humanity had wanted for 30 years was being placed on the table. Full galactic citizenship, advanced technology, and a voice in galactic affairs. All they had to do was abandon the species that had become their friends and partners. That's a generous offer, Counselor, Jake said finally. But I'm afraid we can't accept it. Vex's compound eyes widened with surprise. You refuse membership in galactic civilization? We refuse to abandon our friends, Jake replied firmly. The species you call primitive have taught us as much as we've taught them. Together, we've accomplished things that none of us could achieve alone. You are making a serious mistake, Captain Morrison, Vex warned. The Council has the power to enforce galactic law, and we have the power to help any species that asks for our assistance, Jake replied calmly. Counselor, humanity isn't trying to overthrow your government or destroy your civilization. We're just trying to help our neighbors build better lives. Amy Carter looked up from her station with alarm. Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships approaching our position. The signatures match the fleet that came here 6 months ago. Jake sighed. The Council was apparently going to try the military approach again. How many ships this time, Amy? 24 vessels, sir, twice the size of the previous fleet. And how many ships do we have in the area? Dr. Walsh checked his tactical display. Counting our partner vessels, we have 37 ships within communication range. Most of them are modified using human techniques. Jake turned back to face Counselor Vex on the screen. Counselor, I really hope you're not planning to start a war over this. The Council is prepared to use whatever force is necessary to maintain galactic stability, Vex replied coldly. Then you're going to be very disappointed, Jake said with a smile. Amy, open a channel to all partner vessels in the area. As Amy established the communications link, Jake looked out at the stars where he knew dozens of ships were waiting. A year ago, these vessels had been considered worthless junk by their own civilizations. Now they represented something the Galactic Council had never seen before, an alliance based on mutual aid and shared knowledge instead of domination and dependence. All partner vessels, this is Captain Morrison, Jake announced. The Galactic Council has arrived with a fleet and is demanding that we stop our cooperation agreements. I want everyone to know that humanity will never abandon our friends regardless of the consequences. The responses came flooding in immediately. Captain Zara of the Vorthans, Commander Klix of the Rendari, Captain Talk of the Mesh Collective, and dozens of others. Every species that had been dismissed as primitive or irrelevant by the Council was now ready to stand together. We stand with humanity, came Zara's voice over the channel. They showed us what we could become. The Rendari. Fleet stands ready, added Commander Klix. No Council threats will separate us from our human friends. As ship after ship declared their loyalty, Jake realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The Council's authority had always rested on the belief that advanced civilizations were naturally superior to primitive ones. But humanity had proven that advancement came from innovation and cooperation, not from hoarding technology and maintaining hierarchies. Counselor Vex, Jake said, turning back to the screen, you came here expecting to find a few rebel ships that you could easily defeat. Instead, you've found a new model for galactic civilization, one based on partnership instead of domination. Vex stared at the tactical displays showing dozens of modified ships surrounding his fleet. This changes nothing, Captain Morrison. The Council will not allow galactic order to be disrupted. Then I guess you'll have to fight us all, Jake replied simply. But before you do, ask yourself this question. Is maintaining your control really worth starting a war with half the galaxy? The transmission ended, leaving the bridge quiet except for the hum of improved systems and the soft voices of their allies coordinating defensive positions. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same determination that had carried them through every challenge of the past year. Well, everyone, he said finally, it looks like we're about to find out what happened. News of humanity's victory over the Kronak Raiders spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days of the battle, every major civilization knew that the primitive humans had defeated a modern military vessel using nothing but an old transport ship. The reaction was not what Captain Jake Morrison had hoped for. "Captain, we're receiving another urgent transmission from the Galactic Council," Amy Carter announced from her communications station aboard the Defiance. "That's the 5th one this week." Jake sighed and rubbed his tired eyes. Ever since word of their victory had reached galactic civilization, they had been bombarded with messages, demands, and accusations from species across the galaxy. Some wanted to know how humans had accomplished the impossible. Others wanted to make sure it never happened again. "Put it through, Amy. Let's see what they want this time." The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar insectoid form of Counselor Vex. But this time, he was not alone. Behind him stood representatives from at least 6 different species, all looking agitated and concerned. "Captain Morrison," Vex began, his mechanical translator making his voice sound even more formal than usual. "The Galactic Council demands an immediate explanation for your recent actions against the Kronak vessel." Jake stood up from his command chair. "We defended Earth from an unprovoked attack, Counselor. I thought that would be considered a good thing. You engaged in combat using unauthorized modifications to Council-provided technology," interrupted a new voice. The speaker was a tall, blue-skinned humanoid that Jake recognized as a member of the Altarian Diplomatic Corps. "Such modifications violate several galactic treaties regarding technology sharing." Dr. Walsh looked up from his science station with confusion. "Unauthorized modifications? We improve systems on our own ship using our own knowledge and resources. How is that unauthorized?" A third alien, this one resembling a floating jellyfish with multiple tentacles, pulsed with angry colors as it spoke. "Primitive species are not permitted to advance beyond their designated technological level without Council approval. Your actions threaten the stability of galactic civilization." Jake felt his temper rising. "Designated technological level? Are you saying there's a limit to how much humans are allowed to learn and grow?" "Every species has its place in the galactic order," Vex explained, as if he were talking to a child. "The Council maintains peace by ensuring that no species develops capabilities beyond their understanding or wisdom. Your recent actions suggest that humanity may have exceeded safe limitations." Amy Carter had been quietly monitoring galactic communications during the conversation. Now she spoke up with urgency in her voice. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple alien ships approaching Earth space, at least 12 vessels from different species." Jake turned to face the screen again. "Counselor Vex, are those your ships heading toward Earth?" "The Council has decided that direct observation of human activities is necessary," Vex replied stiffly. "A joint task force has been assembled to evaluate the extent of unauthorized human technological development." "And if you decide we've gone too far?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Then appropriate measures will be taken to restore the proper order," the blue-skinned Altarian said coldly. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge of the Defiance in tense silence. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of anger and determination on every face that he felt in his own chest. "So that's how it is," Lisa Brady said over the intercom from the engine room. We prove we can defend ourselves, and they decide that makes us too dangerous to exist. Ryan, how long until those ships reach Earth? Jake asked. Pilot Ryan Clark checked his navigation displays. 6 hours, Captain. And sir, these aren't just observation vessels. I'm reading weapons signatures on most of them. Jake walked to the main view screen and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a fleet of alien warships was approaching Earth with the power to decide humanity's fate. The same species that had given humans a broken-down ship as a cruel joke were now coming to punish them for making it work. Amy, open a channel to Earth Command, Jake ordered. They need to know what's coming. As Amy established the connection, Jake thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. 6 months ago, humanity had been begging for a chance to join galactic civilization. Now they were about to be judged as a threat to that same civilization. The face of Admiral Sarah Collins appeared on the screen, her expression grim. Captain Morrison, we've been monitoring the galactic communications. How bad is the situation? 12 ships, Admiral, multiple species working together. They're calling it an evaluation, but they're bringing enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Admiral Collins was quiet for a moment, considering their options. Captain, can the Defiance handle 12 modern galactic warships? Jake looked around at his crew before answering. Honestly, Admiral, I don't know. We proved we could beat one Raider ship, but this is different. These are military vessels from advanced civilizations, and they'll be expecting us to fight unconventionally. What do you recommend? Before Jake could answer, Dr. Walsh spoke up from his science station. Admiral, we've learned something important. Over the past 6 months, the galaxy operates on assumptions about how things should work. They gave us a useless ship because they assumed we'd use it the way they would. They expect us to lose because they assume we'll fight the way they do. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Admiral Collins asked. That we don't fight at all, Kevin replied. At least not the way they expect us to. Jake began to understand what his science officer was thinking. Amy, have you been monitoring communications between the approaching ships? Yes, sir. They're coordinating their approach, sharing tactical data, and discussing containment strategies. They're treating this like a standard military operation against a known threat. But we're not a known threat, are we? Jake said with a growing smile. We're something new, something they don't understand. Lisa Brady's voice came over the intercom again. Captain, what if we showed them exactly how much they don't understand? Over the next several hours, the Defiance prepared for the most important encounter in human history. But instead of preparing for battle, they prepared for something much more dangerous to the galactic status quo. They prepared to demonstrate the true power of human innovation. When the galactic fleet arrived in Earth space, they found the Defiance, waiting for them in open space, making no attempt to hide or run. The 12 alien warships formed a perfect circle around the human vessel, their weapons trained and ready to fire. Counselor Vex's image appeared on the Defiance's main screen once again. Captain Morrison, you will submit to immediate boarding and inspection. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Counselor, Jake replied calmly, before you do anything irreversible, I think you should see what humans have really accomplished with your gift. We have seen enough human modifications. The Blue Altarian interrupted. Your weapon systems and defensive capabilities have been thoroughly analyzed. You cannot threaten this fleet. Jake smiled. You're absolutely right. We can't threaten your fleet, but we can do something much more important. What are you talking about? Vex demanded. We can show the galaxy what they're really afraid of, Jake said. Amy, transmit our technical specifications to every ship in the fleet. Full schematics, modification procedures, and performance data. Sir, are you sure? Amy asked. Do it. As The data flowed from the Defiance to the alien ships. Jake watched the expressions on the faces of the galactic representatives change from confidence to confusion to something approaching fear. "This is impossible," whispered the jellyfish-like alien. "These specifications show improvements of over 300% in multiple system categories. Using only materials and techniques available to any spacefaring civilization," Dr. E. Walsh added helpfully. Vex's compound eyes studied the data flowing across his screens. "How did you achieve such modifications with primitive technology?" "That's just it, Counselor," Jake explained. "The technology isn't primitive. Your understanding of what can be done with it is primitive. You built the perfect ship for your needs and stopped thinking about it. We built a foundation and kept building." A new voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to a species Jake didn't recognize. "If humans can achieve these results with century-old Zephyrian technology, what could they accomplish with modern systems?" The question hung in space like a challenge. Around the Defiance, 12 of the galaxy's most advanced warships sat in perfect formation, their crews suddenly realizing that they might be looking at the future of galactic civilization. "Every system on this ship can be improved," Lisa Brady's voice came over the open channel. "Every limitation can be overcome. Every problem can be solved. That's what humans do." "And now you know our secret," Jake added. "We don't accept that. Things have to stay the way they are. We don't believe in impossible. And we don't stop improving just because something works well enough." The galactic fleet remained in position around the Defiance, but Jake could sense that something fundamental had changed. The aliens had come expecting to contain a threat to their established order. Instead, they had discovered something that challenged their basic issue. 6 months after the Galactic Council had given humanity their unwanted ship, the Defiance was finally ready for its first real mission. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the outer edges of the solar system through the main view screen. They were supposed to be conducting a simple patrol, testing their systems in real space conditions. What they found instead would change everything. "Captain, I'm picking up an unknown contact on long-range sensors," Amy Carter announced from her communications station. Her voice carried a note of concern that made everyone on the bridge look up from their work. Jake leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of contact?" Amy worked at her controls, pulling up information on the main screen. "It's big, sir. About twice our size. Moving fast toward the inner solar system. The signature doesn't match any known Earth vessel or any friendly alien ship in our database." Dr. Walsh looked up from his science station. "Could it be another Galactic Council ship? Maybe they're checking on our progress." "Negative," Amy replied, shaking her head. "Council ships have specific identification signals. This one is broadcasting on frequencies that match known radar patterns." The word radar sent a chill through the bridge. Everyone knew about the Kronak raiders, though few humans had ever seen one. They were a species that attacked isolated worlds, stealing resources and technology from civilizations that couldn't defend themselves. Worlds without galactic protection were their favorite. "Targets, are you certain it's a raider ship?" Jake asked. Amy's fingers flew across her controls as she gathered more information. "Checking against all known signatures, yes, sir. It's definitely a Kronak Raider-class vessel, and it's heading straight for Earth." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was exactly the kind of situation the Galactic Council expected humans to run from. Standard protocol would be to retreat immediately and call for galactic assistance, which would probably arrive too late to prevent serious damage to Earth. "Ryan, how long until it reaches Earth at current speed?" Jake asked. Pilot Ryan Clark quickly calculated the numbers. 4 hours, Captain, maybe less if they increase speed." "And how long for galactic assistance to arrive if we call for help?" 8 to 12 hours, assuming they respond immediately," Amy answered quietly. The bridge fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Earth was defenseless except for the Defiance, and the Defiance was supposed to be a barely functional piece of junk that could hardly leave the solar system. "Sir," said Danny Torres from the weapons station, Our modifications are complete and tested. All systems are running at full capacity. Jake looked around at his crew. These were the same people who had spent months turning an alien scrap heap into something new. They had proven that humans could take the impossible and make it work. Now they had a chance to prove something even more important. All stations battle alert, Jake ordered. This is not a drill. The ship's lighting changed to red alert status as the crew prepared for combat. Lisa Brady's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. All power systems are stable and ready. Engines are running at 110% efficiency. Danny, weapons status? Jake asked. All modified plasma kinetic cannons are charged and ready, Danny reported. Targeting systems are online. We have full ammunition for extended engagement. Amy, open a channel to the approaching vessel. The main screen flickered as Amy established communication with the Kronak ship. The alien that appeared was nothing like the insectoid Counselor Vex. This creature looked like a cross between a shark and a lizard, with rows of sharp teeth and cold, predatory eyes. Unknown vessel, the Kronak captain spoke in heavily accented English. You are in violation of our claimed hunting territory. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. Jake stood up from his command chair. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Defiance. You are approaching Earth space without authorization. Turn around and leave immediately. The Kronak captain made a sound that might have been laughter. Human vessel? We have scanned your ship. You pilot an old Zephyrian transport, obsolete and worthless. Your primitive weapons cannot harm us. Withdraw now, or we will demonstrate the superiority of Kronak technology. I'm afraid we can't do that, Jake replied calmly. Earth is under our protection. Then you have chosen to die, the Kronak captain snarled. So be it. The communication ended, and the Kronak ship immediately increased speed toward Earth. On the tactical display, Jake could see it was larger, newer, and more heavily armed than the Defiance. By every measure, this should be a hopeless fight. Ryan, take us to intercept course, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, are you sure about this? Dr. Walsh asked quietly. That ship outguns us significantly. Jake smiled grimly. Kevin, what have we learned over the past 6 months? That specifications don't tell the whole story? Exactly. Danny, prepare to target their engines and weapons systems. Don't try to destroy the ship, just disable it. Understood, sir. The Defiance accelerated toward the much larger Kronak vessel. Ryan's modifications to the maneuvering system allowed them to move in ways that surprised even Jake. Instead of the straight-line approach that galactic ships typically used, the Defiance began a complex spiral pattern that brought them toward the enemy from an unexpected angle. The Kronak ship is trying to target us, Amy reported, but they're having trouble getting a weapons lock. That's because they've never seen anything move like we do, Ryan said with satisfaction. Their targeting computers are designed for predictable flight patterns. The two ships closed to combat range within minutes. The Kronak vessel was indeed impressive, bristling with modern weapons and protected by energy shields that glowed around its hull. But as they drew closer, Jake noticed something important. Their weapons are all fixed forward, he observed. They can only shoot at targets directly in front of them. Most galactic ships are built that way, Danny confirmed. They expect enemies to approach head-on for honorable combat. Good thing we're not most galactic ships. Ryan, take us around to their side. The Defiance suddenly changed direction in a maneuver that would have been impossible for any standard galactic vessel. Instead of charging straight at the enemy, they curved around to attack from the Kronak ship's blind spot. The enemy captain's voice crackled over the communication system. Impossible! How can an obsolete transport vessel maneuver like a fighter? Craft? Because we rebuilt it, Jake replied simply. Danny's modified weapons opened fire. The hybrid plasma kinetic rounds struck the Kronak ship's side armor with devastating effect. Where standard plasma bolts would have been absorbed by the enemy shields, The magnetically accelerated rounds punched straight through. Direct hits. On their engine compartment, Danny reported. Their power output is dropping. The Kronak ship tried to turn to bring its weapons to bear, but Ryan was already moving. The Defiance to a new position. The human ship danced around the larger vessel like a fighter jet around a cargo plane, striking precisely and moving before the enemy could respond. Their main weapons are offline, Amy announced, monitoring the enemy ship's communications. They're calling for assistance, but the nearest Kronak vessel is days away. Jake watched as the enemy ship struggled to cope with tactics they had never encountered before. Galactic warfare was apparently a very formal affair, with ships approaching each other directly and exchanging fire until one was destroyed. No one had taught the Kronak how to fight an enemy that refused to follow the rules. Danny, target their communication array, Jake ordered. Let's make sure they can't call for help. Another precise volley from the Defiance's weapons destroyed the Kronak ship's communication systems. The large vessel was now dead in space, its engines destroyed, and its weapons offline. Captain, Amy said, we're receiving a transmission from the Kronak ship. Put it through. The Kronak captain appeared on screen again, but now his predatory confidence was gone. Human vessel, we surrender. Our ship is disabled. We request assistance. Jake considered this for a moment. The Kronak had come to attack Earth, expecting easy prey. Instead, they had found something they never anticipated. Humans who fought back. We'll take your crew aboard and provide medical assistance, Jake said finally. But your ship will be escorted out of this solar system and you will not return. You would help us after we attacked you? That's what humans do, Jake replied. We defend ourselves when necessary, but we don't abandon helpless enemies to die in space. The rescue operation took 2 hours. The Kronak crew was small, only 12 individuals, and they seemed genuinely shocked by human mercy. Their captain, whose name was Vector, kept asking questions about human technology and tactics. How did you make an obsolete transport ship fight like a military vessel? He asked Jake as they prepared to transfer the Kronak crew to a rescue pod. We didn't accept that it had to stay obsolete, Jake explained. We saw what it could become instead of what it was. As they watched the rescue pod carry the defeated raiders away from Earth, Dr. Walsh joined Jake on the bridge. So what happens now? Now we file our report with Earth Command and wait to see how the galaxy reacts, Jake said. Something tells me word of this fight is going to spread quickly. Amy looked up from her communication station. Sir, I'm already picking up. Increased chatter on Galactic Commu. 3 months had passed since the Galactic Council had dumped their unwanted ship on humanity. During those months, Transport Unit 47 had become something very different from what the aliens had left behind. The crew had renamed it the Defiance, and Jake Morrison thought the name fit perfectly. The ship still looked rough from the outside, but inside was a different story. Every day brought new changes, new improvements, and new discoveries about what humans could do when they refused to accept limitations. Lisa Brady wiped grease from her hands as she climbed out of the engine compartment. Her blue coveralls were stained with oil and coolant, but her face was bright with excitement. Jake, you need to see this, she called out. Captain Morrison made his way through the narrow corridors to the engine room. The space buzzed with activity as human engineers worked alongside the alien machinery. They had learned to read the strange symbols on the control panels and figured out how most systems worked. More importantly, they had begun changing things. Look at this power output reading, Lisa said, pointing to a display screen that now showed information in English instead of alien symbols. We're getting 40% more power than when we started. Jake studied the numbers. Even to his non-engineer eyes, the improvement was obvious. How did you manage that? Remember how the aliens just accepted that the power system worked the way it was built? Lisa asked. Well, we didn't. Kevin and I spent 2 weeks mapping every power line in this ship. Turns out the Zephyrians built it like they thought in straight lines. Power goes from point A to point B to point C, no matter how far apart those points are. She led him to a wall panel that had been removed to show the guts of the ship's electrical system. What Jake saw looked nothing like the original alien design. New cables ran in different directions, and human-made junction boxes connected systems that had never been connected before. We redesigned the whole thing using Earth electrical grid principles, Lisa continued. Multiple pathways, backup routes, load balancing. If one system fails, the power automatically routes around it, and by shortening the distances and reducing resistance, we get way more efficiency. Dr. Walsh appeared from another corridor, carrying a tablet computer and wearing the same excited expression that seemed to be spreading through the crew. Jake, wait until you hear what we found in the hull composition. They walked to what had once been a storage room but was now Kevin's makeshift laboratory. Tables covered with metal samples, testing equipment, and computer displays filled the space. Kevin picked up a small piece of the ship's hull material. This stuff the aliens call worthless, he said, holding up the metal. It's incredible. The base composition is similar to titanium steel alloys we use on Earth, but with trace elements we don't have. It's been corroded by poor maintenance, but underneath, it's actually stronger than most materials we know. Kevin led them to a workbench, where several hull samples sat in different conditions. Lisa and I have been experimenting with earth welding techniques on this metal. Watch this. He picked up 2 pieces of the alien hull material that had been welded together using human methods. With a hammer, he struck the joint as hard as he could. The metal around the weld bent, but the weld itself remained perfect. The aliens never figured out how to properly maintain this stuff, Kevin explained. They just accepted that it would corrode and weaken over time. But using earth metallurgy techniques, we can not only stop the corrosion, we can actually make it stronger than it was when new. Jake ran his fingers along the welded joint. It felt solid, reliable, human. What about the other systems? Come see what Ryan and Amy have been up to with the navigation and flight controls, Kevin said with a grin. They made their way to the bridge, where pilot Ryan Clark sat in the captain's chair working with a collection of computer equipment that definitely had not come from the Galactic Council. The alien control panels were still there, but they were now surrounded by human displays, keyboards, and interface systems. Ryan, show the captain what we've accomplished, Amy Carter called from her communications station. Ryan's hands moved across both human and alien controls as he brought up a 3-dimensional display of space around the ship. The original alien navigation system was designed for simple point-to-point travel, he explained. You pick a destination, the computer calculates a straight-line path, and you follow it. Very efficient for cargo hauling between established routes. The display showed a basic flight path between 2 points in space, a simple straight line with minor course corrections. But that's not how humans learn to fly, Ryan continued. His fingers danced across the controls, and the display changed, dramatically. Now it showed complex curved paths, spiral approaches, and evasive maneuvers that made Jake slightly dizzy just watching them. We've completely reprogrammed the flight computer using principles from Earth atmospheric flight training. This ship can now perform combat maneuvers that no alien pilot would ever think to attempt. We can change direction, speed, and altitude in ways that would confuse any alien ship trying to track us. Amy looked up from her station. And I've integrated our communication systems with theirs. We can now monitor alien communication frequencies, while broadcasting on human frequencies they can't detect. If we ever run into trouble, we'll know what they're planning before they do it. Jake walked to the main view screen, which now displayed information in both alien symbols and English. Text. Everything looked familiar, yet completely transformed. What about weapons? Danny Torres is working on that, Ryan replied. You should see what he's done in the weapons bay. They found Danny in what the aliens had probably considered a minor defensive weapons room. The space was larger now, with walls that had been cut open to make room for new equipment. The original alien plasma cannons were still there, but they looked like museum pieces compared to what surrounded them. "Captain, check this out," Danny said, patting one of the modified weapons. "The aliens built these plasma cannons to last forever. Solid construction, reliable operation, but really slow firing rate and limited range." He led them to a targeting display that showed the capabilities of both the original and modified weapons. The original system could fire once every 30 seconds with an effective range of about 50,000 kilometers. Not bad for a cargo ship, but pretty weak for real combat. Danny switched the display to show the modified weapons stats. "Using principles from our railgun research projects, we've added magnetic acceleration to the plasma bolts. Now we can fire every 8 seconds with double the range and triple the impact force." Jake studied the numbers with amazement. "How is that possible?" "The aliens never considered combining different technologies," Danny explained. "They built plasma weapons to shoot plasma, period. But we asked ourselves, what if we use magnetics to make the plasma go faster? What if we modify the power systems to charge faster? What if we design the targeting system to track multiple enemies instead of just one?" He walked them around the weapons bay, pointing out modification after modification. Human-designed targeting computers worked alongside alien plasma generators. Earth-built magnetic coils accelerated alien energy bolts. Everything was connected in ways the original designers had never imagined. "The best part," Danny continued, "is that everything we've built can be easily repaired or replaced. The aliens designed their ships like puzzles where every piece has to be exactly right. We've designed ours like construction sets where any piece can be swapped out for a better one." Lisa Brady joined them in the weapons bay, wiping her hands on a rag. "That's the real difference between us and them. They build something and consider it finished. We build something and consider it a starting point." Dr. Walsh nodded enthusiastically. "Every system on this ship can be improved, modified, or completely replaced using materials and techniques we understand. The aliens gave us a foundation, and we're building a completely different structure on top of it." Jake looked around at his crew. 3 months ago, they had been given what amounted to a flying pile of junk. Now they had something that was beginning to look like a real starship. More than that, they had proven something important about humanity. "How much more work do we need before this ship is ready for a real mission?" Jake asked. Ryan checked his tablet computer. "Another month for final testing and integration. We want to make sure all our modifications work together properly." "And then?" Jake asked. Lisa grinned. "Then we show the galaxy what humans can do with their garbage." Amy looked up from her communications station where she had been monitoring galactic news feeds. "Speaking of the galaxy, there's been some interesting chatter on the alien communication networks. Apparently, several species have been asking the Galactic Council about humanity's progress with our new ship." "What kind of questions?" Jake asked. "Whether we've given up yet," Amy replied. "Whether the ship has broken down completely, whether we've asked for help or better equipment. The general consensus seems to be that humans should have admitted failure by now." Dr. Walsh laughed. "They really don't understand us, do they?" Jake walked to the main view screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were watching and waiting for humanity to fail. They had given humans a broken dectidit to defeat them. The stars looked cold and distant through the small window of the space station. Captain Jake Morrison pressed his face against the glass and watched the alien ship approach Earth's orbital dock. After 30 years of asking, begging, and pleading, the Galactic Council had finally agreed to give humanity something. Jake just wished he felt more excited about it. "Sir, the alien ship is requesting permission to dock," said Communications Officer Amy Carter. Her voice carried the same mix of hope and worry that Jake felt in his chest. "Grant them permission," Jake replied, stepping away from the window. He straightened his blue uniform and checked his appearance one more time. Today would either mark the beginning of humanity's journey to the stars, or it would be the day they learned just how little the galaxy thought of them. The docking bay filled with the strange humming sound of alien technology as the Galactic Council ship settled into place. Jake had seen pictures of their vessels before, but seeing one in person took his breath away. The ship looked like a work of art, all smooth curves and glowing lights. It made everything human-built look like crude metal boxes in comparison. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss, and 3 alien figures stepped through. Jake recognized the leader immediately from the video calls they had shared over the past months. Counselor Vex stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 6 arms and a head that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a spider. His skin was dark green and shiny, and when he moved, it made soft clicking sounds. "Captain Morrison," Vex said through his translation device. The voice sounded flat and mechanical. "I bring greetings from the Galactic Council in fulfillment of our agreement." Jake stepped forward and offered his hand, though he knew the alien would not shake it. Different species had different customs, and touching was considered rude by most of them. "Counselor Vex, welcome to Earth Station. We are honored by your presence." Vex's large, compound eyes looked at Jake for a moment before he spoke again. "Yes. Well, let us proceed to the transfer ceremony. The Council has many other matters to attend to today." The tone made Jake's stomach tighten. This did not sound like the beginning of a friendship between species. It sounded more like someone trying to get rid of an annoying problem as quickly as possible. They walked through the station corridors toward the main docking bay. Jake had gathered his best people for this moment. Chief Engineer Lisa Brady stood, with her toolbox at her side, ready to examine whatever technology they were about to receive. Dr. Kevin Walsh, their science officer, held a tablet computer and looked eager to start taking notes. 20 other crew members stood in neat rows, all wearing their best uniforms. When they reached the docking bay, Jake saw it. The ship that was supposed to carry humanity to the stars sat in the middle of the large space like a sick animal. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of the largest ship humans had ever built. But it looked old and tired. Paint was peeling off the hull in long strips. Rust stains covered much of the surface. Several of the external lights were broken or missing entirely. "This is Transport Unit 47, Vex announced, as if he were presenting them with a gift instead of what looked like space junk. "It has served the Zephyrian people for many years, and will now serve humanity." Lisa Brady walked slowly around the ship, running her hand along the hull. Jake could see her engineer's mind working, cataloging every problem she spotted. The list was going to be long. "The ship is equipped with standard fusion drives, basic shielding systems, and minimal weapon arrays," Vex continued. "All systems function within acceptable parameters for a vessel of this age and class." Dr. Walsh raised his hand like a student in school. "Counselor Vex, what is the age of this vessel?" 115 of your Earth years, Vex replied without emotion. "By galactic standards, this is considered well-maintained for its age." Jake felt his heart sink. 115 years old. On Earth, that would make it ancient, beyond any hope of useful service. But maybe alien technology lasted longer than human machines. Maybe there was still hope. "The ship's computer systems are fully functional," Vex went on, "though they operate on older software protocols. The living quarters can accommodate 30 beings of roughly human size. The cargo bay can hold sufficient supplies for extended voyages within your local star system." "Local star system," Jake repeated. "Are you saying this ship cannot travel to other stars?" For the first time, something that might have been amusement crossed Vex's alien features. "Captain Morrison, this vessel is capable of faster-than-light travel, yes. However, its range and speed are quite limited compared to modern galactic vessels. I would not recommend ventures far from Earth." The message was clear. They were giving humanity a ship that could barely leave home. It was like giving someone a broken bicycle and telling them they could explore the world with it. Amy Carter stepped up beside Jake. Counselor, will there be training provided for the ship's systems? Technical manuals? Any kind of support? The ship's computer contains all necessary operational information, Vex replied. Your species has demonstrated sufficient technical knowledge to operate basic fusion technology. You should experience no difficulties. Lisa Brady looked up from where she was examining a corroded section of hull. Sir, this metal here looks like it's been eating itself from the inside. How long since the last major maintenance? Vex's translator made several clicking sounds before producing words. Approximately 23 Earth years. The Zephyrians found it more economical to build new vessels rather than maintain older ones. 23 years without proper maintenance. Jake was starting to understand exactly what kind of gift this really was. The Galactic Council had not given humanity a ship. They had given them a problem they no longer wanted to deal with themselves. The transfer is now complete, Vex announced. The ship's registration has been changed to reflect human ownership. The Council considers this matter closed. Jake wanted to protest, to demand something better, to ask why they were being treated this way, but he knew it would do no good. This was what humanity got after 30 years of asking to join galactic civilization. Take it or leave it. Thank you, Counselor Vex, Jake said instead. Humanity appreciates the Council's generosity. Vex and his companions turned and walked back toward their sleek, perfect ship without another word. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving Jake and his crew alone with their new vessel. The docking bay fell silent except for the soft hum of the station's air recycling system. 25 humans stood looking at the rusty, broken-down ship that was supposed to be their ticket to the stars. Well, Lisa Brady said finally, it's definitely a ship. It's got 4 walls and a roof, Dr. Walsh added. That's something. Jake walked up to the ship's main entry ramp and placed his hand on the cold metal. Through his palm, he could feel the ship's engines still running, a faint vibration that spoke of life still flowing through its ancient systems. It was old, yes. It was damaged, certainly. But it was theirs. Listen up, everyone, Jake called out, his voice echoing in the large bay. I know this isn't what we hoped for. I know it looks like they gave us their garbage and called it a gift. But this is what we have to work with. And we're going to make it work. He looked around at his crew, seeing the same mix of disappointment and determination on every face. These were good people, smart people, people who had volunteered to take humanity's first steps into the galaxy, even knowing the odds were against them. We've got the best engineer in the solar system, he continued, nodding toward Lisa. We've got the smartest science officer Earth ever produced. We've got a pilot who can fly anything with engines and a communications officer who speaks 6 languages. Most importantly, we've got something the galaxy doesn't seem to understand. What's that, sir? Amy asked. Jake smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. We've got human stubbornness. They gave us a piece of junk and told us it was good enough. Let's show them what humans can do with a piece of junk. The crew began to laugh, and Jake felt the mood in the bay change from disappointment to something much more dangerous to their alien benefactors. It was the same feeling that had driven humans to cross oceans in wooden boats, to build flying machines when everyone said it was impossible, and to reach for the moon when it seemed impossibly far away. They had been handed a useless vessel. Now it was time to make it something the galaxy had never seen before.